Monotony in games like Runescape, Borderlands, and even Minecraft can come from the lack of risk you're taking in any of your actions, such as how Runescape has been updated in such a way that even if you fail at a difficult quest or boss, you either had to pay a small fee or no fee at all to collect all your items. Same thing with Borderlands and most other shooters. You die and restart from a checkpoint to then mindlessly charge into the same battle without repercussion. This can make a game feel like it's more of a grind than an achievement to beat it, and it's this kind of repetition without repercussion that will make players lose interest in most games. You can be doing your worst in any of these shooters and wouldn't get punched for it, so why give any effort in at all if you could be doing your bare minimum and get the equivalent reward you would get if you were actually trying? It's something that most of us have been conditioned to with modern games. Although you may not feel it, it absolutely has an impact. Even in non-linear games like Fallout, your actions, again, don't need to have a consequence, and that's because of the quick save feature. Oh man, you killed the wrong guy? Well, that's okay because you can load up a quick save from 30 seconds ago and bam, he's alive again. And it makes sense to why we do this. It's almost an obligation that if the best path is available to you, why not take it? That is, in essence, what most of us would want in our lives, to follow the best path. But in life, there's no going back on what you do. There is no quick save option. If you make a bad decision, you have to live with it and learn from it. But that only amplifies a good feeling when you're doing something right, because your decisions actually hold some weight. And that's what's lacking in the previously mentioned games. There's almost no responsibility given to you for your own success, as the game will lead you there anyway. But there is a solution to this, and that is make games more like life, where you only have one. And yes, I'm talking about permadeath, or as some games like to call it, Iron Man mode. Even MMOs like RuneScape have implemented this feature, and I'm not talking about the single player component like I have in previous videos. I'm talking about the hardcore component where if you die, that's it. It's the end of your hardcore Iron Man. Now running mindlessly into battle wouldn't be your first option when encountering an enemy, because failure now holds a serious consequence. You have to think carefully and more strategically. Is it really worth risking your character that you could have spent anywhere from a couple hours to several months progressing for a minuscule amount of loot? Every decision you make, whether big or small, will majorly impact your future in that run. Again, there is no going back, or loading, or trying an alternate route. Like life, you have to live with the path you've chosen for yourself and try to make the best of it. That being said, every day you've progressed your character and are still alive is an achievement in itself, an achievement more powerfully felt than almost anything you can do in the vanilla game, where the product of your success is through handholding from a linear path. Where in permadeath mode, there is very little to no room for error, and you're responsible for your own success. It evokes a more emotional response to success or failure, and is truly a uniquely intense way to play any game. And again, the feeling of success is only amplified by your many failures, which is where we get into roguelikes such as Faster Than Light and Enter the Gungeon. Enter the Gungeon is a game that took me only 42 minutes and 1 second to beat in a run, but it took me 44 hours of failing and multiple other runs to get there. And I've only done this for 1 out of 9 playable characters, though some might consider roguelikes to be the most monotonous of all games, being that constant deaths mean that you had to start from the beginning of the game and fight the same low-level enemies with the same starter weaponry and gear. But that is about the extent of its repetition. The way the floors, chests, and even events are set up is all random. No 2 runs you will have will be the same. I'd even like to think that its emphasis on the beginner content is also a strength, where in most other progression-based games like RuneScape, beginner content is often negated and is only ever viable for you to use when you make a brand new character. And for the rest of your time playing, you're discarding previous methods of progression which you will never have to return to, leaving you only to use the content that is optimal to you at high levels, which is true monotony and makes the game feel like more of a grind. But with roguelikes, it's the other way around. The part where you'll be less used to will be the endgame content that is not given to you unless you deserve it. You had to practice your skills, strategy, and general game mechanics before you are worthy to be moved up a rung in difficulty. Where then in games like these will often introduce new mechanics and enemies that you will have to again master to move up another level. And that only adds more incentive to improve yourself. What else could the game be holding? What haven't you seen yet? If not for the difficulty, you might play these for your own curiosity. Think about a time before you had access to the internet. Maybe you're playing Mario 64, Sonic Adventure Battle, or even the classic Super Mario World. where even if you beat the game, you might often repeat levels that you already beat to try to discover secrets, and when you find one, it's mind-blowing that even after you spend so much time in a game, there's still more out there to be discovered. This is something that's hard to do in modern day games because of easy access to information, and in other cases the hand-holding that games have. But there are so many weapon combinations and random events condensed in such a small amount of game length, you wouldn't know what to look for. And though your skill does play a large part in your progression, luck can also be the determinant of your success. You can obtain a weapon or piece of equipment that can make easy work of enemies, or you can obtain a piece of gear that is substantially worse than your starter gear. And whatever happens, you'll have to deal with, as these games, though balanced, are not meant to be fair. They are a sort of craft your own adventure game. Like that time, my lockpick failed on several chests in a row, leaving me somewhat unequipped for later levels. But one of the items I managed to pick up summoned a shifty pig companion that did nothing but hop around through the entire game. And when at one of the bosses, I failed the dodge roll and was struck dead. Or so I thought. There was a brief cutscene where the pig companion took the fatal blow from me, allowing me to then complete the dungeon. This is a major leap from linear games where every player will have the same experience throughout, with little deviation depending on the diversity of choices presented. But you might also be thinking to yourself, well, roguelikes sound nice and all, but what's the point of playing it if the hours you spend dying over and over are not compensated? Well, they actually are, but in a non-traditional way. Whenever you die, it is true that you are as far away from the boss as when you started, but the compensation comes in the form of unlocking additional characters to play with and purchasing additional weapons and equipment that will then be added to the list of possible loot from chests. This helps keep the game fresh, as even though the enemies may stay the same, the way you approach them varies on the character you choose. Say in Faster Than Light, if I chose a rock cruiser, I wouldn't have to worry about enemy shields and could approach enemies more aggressively. But if I chose the Zoltan cruiser, I'd probably take a more defensive route due to my improved shields. But my playstyle could flip if I got weapons that encourage aggression and vice versa. And in an even more creative fashion, Enter the Gungeon has synergy-based weapons, that if you manage to pick up items that closely relate, they can be upgraded in a way where this weapon that you've used several times before in other runs and are fairly familiar with becomes an entirely new plaything. Such as when obtaining both Rube Idan weapons forms a new powerful weapon called the Rubenstein's Monster. It's a pleasant sight to behold whenever you obtain one of these powerful combinations in a failing run. You truly don't know what to expect when starting a game, and having beat one of the secret final bosses and achieving the true ending of one of the characters was one of the best feelings I've gotten from a game in a very long time. It wasn't the result of riding a rail and being guided where to go that ultimately results in the completion of the game. It was the result of my own improvement and having finally made the right choices that got me by just enough to finally complete a Gungeon. And I'm still motivated to play more of it because of the additional secret levels I hear so much about and the challenging characters to unlock. Though it brings just as much frustration as dying as it does in victory, this reintroduction of permadeath that was once the norm in most games is now seeing a comeback to spice up even your most peaceful or grinding games. Take Runescape for example. If not for the gameplay itself, you can make a hardcore Iron Man to compete in the ever-changing hardcore Iron Man leaderboards, bringing even more people to watch the top Iron Man's daily routines until the unfortunate day they fall. It's a breath of fresh air to have this feature available and can rejuvenate any game, even something like Minecraft. The vanilla game only takes a 6-year-old and a copious amount of time to beat it. But in hardcore mode, it takes an experienced player to know all possible dangers to even think about attempting such a feat. If you're feeling bored with the game you're playing or simply feel that it's getting repetitive, look for an Iron Man option. Though the game is exactly the same, your experience with it won't be. Besides bragging rights, permadeath not only brings a new level of difficulty to games, but also brings the more resourceful side of you out. And it's a nice break from what I'd like to call oversaturated games, where at first, the gameplay can be amazing and attention-grabbing, but just like eating your favorite food every day, it eventually gets old. Sometimes you have to eat broccoli to truly appreciate the taste of chocolate. And in order to have a good balance of entertainment and satisfaction, a game has to challenge you and let you learn from your mistakes. It needs to remove that safety net, not because you'll fall, but because it incentivizes you not to. Let's say in life, if you always made the correct choice and never had a bad experience, would it really be a life that you could appreciate? In closing, permadeath in games might seem like a cruel fate that losing your progression is almost an inevitability due to a misstep or failure in judgment. But it spices up your journey through the game enough to give you a newfound appreciation and gives you a sense of control and achievement to your progression uncontested by any other form of game. After all, the game is about the journey and not the end. This has been how permadeath is the solution to monotony. Thank you for watching.